all kinds of stuff, all of your codecs, everything, hexadecimal information for your CPU. It's just a plethora of really good information. Okay, what we have here is CPU-Z. I'll have it in the show notes, the link, if it isn't already in that huge paragraph that's up there. What we have here is core voltage, size of the CPU. This is obviously a really old P4, as you can tell. It also has revision. Now, this can be important because what the revision is the platter that they actually used to make all the CPUs. And the higher clocked CPUs are actually the ones that are more towards the center of the platter, where the best cutting is actually going to be done when they're compressing the platters and cutting the CPUs out. But what the revision has to do with is if someone has that revision and they're hitting higher speeds, normally that revision is going to be really nice to use on your computer too. So revisions are sometimes listed, and you'll also find that the first revisions of the CPUs are normally the better ones, because what they actually do is they release only the better parts of the platter instead of the cheaper parts of the platter, which is kind of gay, but what else is new? You'll have your cache, which lists the L1 and the L2 cache, the way it's set up. Mainboard will list the actual motherboard you're using, all of this great information. And sometimes it lists the BIOS and the correct version, and if you remember in the earlier segment, this isn't the correct version at all. If you go to memory, it has the current clock speeds you're running, the ratio from your CPU and front side bus to DRAM, depends on how your motherboard is set up, whether it's CPU to FSB or FSB to DRAM. Considering this is DDR1, it's going to be FSB to DRAM. Then you go to SPD, and normally you'll have multiple columns here of different frequencies with different settings. And what this is, all the timing table is what's listed in the actual RAM on the SPD to tell the motherboard what to run it at if you're running at said frequency. And it's also really nice because it gives you the part number and everything, and you can look up things very easily without having to go, oh shit, what it is, it crawl under my desk, pull the side of my case off and look and see what RAM it is, and then if I can't read it, I have to shut down the computer, pull the RAM out. You know, it's a very nice program in that sense. So that's pretty much what it's used for. It's also nice. It tells you the instruction sets it has, tells you the multiplier, which I went over. You take the bus speed times the multiplier and you get your core speed. As you can see, this is slightly overclocked. Not much, but slightly, because it was a 2.8 gigahertz processor. And it gives you rated FSB, which is the actual front side bus that the computer is running at. And as you can see, it correlates. It's 4 times what the bus speed is. Pretty simple stuff. Make sure you do your research before you do anything. As I mentioned before, there is overclocking for video cards. So we're going to minimize this, and ATI tool is of course not on the desktop. So we'll go over here and go into ATI tool. This is a very nice program, and it doesn't just work for ATI, it also supports a lot of the NVIDIA cards. But make sure you double check the actual hardware or download information. It'll list what all cards it's able to do. Now, what you can do is you can click these. These will find the max core temperature or max core speed to temperature ratio, and you're able to set it in the back end what you want your max temperature to be, and you can do the same thing with memory. Now, this is great and everything. It'll get you close to the max, but the problem is if you're not paying attention or if your computer locks up and you don't notice it, you can fry everything. Hence why I do everything by hand. It takes longer, but whatever. The other thing is, if you just want to test your video card that you just bought and make sure it doesn't have any artifacts on it, basically so that the card is actually a good card, you can click on this, and what it'll actually do is start up this and it'll scan for artifacts, and as soon as it sees one, it's going to glow nice and yellow, and then it'll normally give you an error message so long as your video card doesn't crap out. And we're going to actually stop this because my video card was overheating when we were running the other benchmarks. As you can see right here, there's a temperature information graph. It's pretty simple. It's a line graph. If you don't know how to use a line graph, I really don't know what to say to you. We have in here the actual device ID, the chip name. This is how I knew I was able to change my X850 into an X850 XTPE, which is the next step up, which was an extra $150 at the time, because the chip name and the device ID were the same, and as you scroll down, the memory bus is the same. And you also have to check the dies and substrates and fuses to make sure they're all right, the piping, everything. And it gets pretty intense in the stuff you can do. You have the artifact scanning, which is the same thing as what's in the beginning. It's to set up all of the amount of time you want it, the amount of time you want it to cool down. It's really nice setup for just about everything they have. Then you have temperature monitoring, and there's special things that you can set it up so that it can show it down in your actual tray down the bottom right hand corner next to the clock and everything. It's very nice program. And you have fan control. You can have it set to try to keep the GPU below a certain temperature, fixed percentage, or you could have it dynamically based like I have it set up right now. There's also gamma control, where you can go in and edit the gamma brightness, contrast, pretty much the same as CAS Control Center. You have startup. You can have it load on startup and load up an extra high fan speed, because say you have a default card and it runs hot, but you want to have that card last a while, you can ramp up the fan speed a little bit, but not fully 100%, and have it run that way so that it keeps your card cool and extends the life of your graphics card. 3D detection, pretty self-explanatory. Detects when something's open, detects when something's closed, so you can overclock it just for 3D games. Driver tweaks, this is all stuff that's normally controlled by Catalyst Control Center that you're able to go in here and change. And under miscellaneous, you have all kinds of stuff. There's certain things, there's locks on the really old Radeon cards before the X1000 series and everything came out. There's the old 9000, 950 series, and you have to go in and click this to be able to overclock it. Alright, pretty simple. Now we're going to go back to the main. This is your GPU, this is your memory, and this is how you can overclock it. You can up it, or you can actually go in here and type in the actual amount you want, and it'll try to get it as close as possible. This is going to be your GPU temperature, this is going to be your memory temperature, and this is your fan speed, what it's running at. Then you can save it and make different ones for different things and have it set up so that you can load it a certain profile with each program you go and use. Very nice program. As you can see, it's showing the temperature down here, and if you hover it over it, it gives you the speed. It's a very nice program.